Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest, absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southern-appalachian-herbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southern-appalachian-herbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. First of all, let me wish you all a very happy Easter. It is a beautiful Easter. Spring is here. Spring and fall are by far my two favorite seasons. I'm not a winter person. I'm not really a summer person. I think as an herbalist, especially, one season is when everything's starting to green up and the herbs and the wild edibles are just coming up and everything is just bright and fresh and full of life. And the other is the fall. It's our harvest time. It's also time to plant the seeds that are going to cold stratify and grow naturally in the garden the next spring. So temperatures are nice. The weather's nice. I love the bright, sunny, still kind of cool spring days and those cool fall nights with all the beautiful leaves and everything. But it's just gorgeous out here right now. I mean, the birds are singing, the squirrels are chasing each other, little rabbits, baby rabbits hopping along, and groundhogs out, side of the road and in the pastures, and everything's just greening up. I mean, there's flowers, green, bright green leaves, the ramps are coming up, the trilliums are up. It's just beautiful. And soon, of course, I'll be going fishing again. And I mean, we don't really have a closed season for trout in the mountains of North Carolina. It just closes for a few weeks in April, of all things, when they restock the streams. So for a little bit, it's too cold to fish, and then the days are really nice, and you just really want to be out there fishing, but you can't, at least not legally. Uh, I am so looking forward to fishing. I'm going to try to fish almost every day this summer and spring and fall. I love to fish. Even though trout really is not my favorite fish, my favorite fish is saltwater fish called red snapper. I also love sheep's head. Those are probably my two favorite fish of all. But trout is delicious. Trout should always be fixed as simply as possible. One of the best, simple recipes is just to take trout and put it in a pan with some butter and a little lemon pepper on top. I mean, super simple. Takes like, I don't even know, 5 minutes to cook, and it's just a wonderful meal. Trout is wonderful smoked anyway. In the next few months, as I do that, I'll be posting probably a lot of trout recipes because, hey, my tax dollars pay to stock those streams. I might as well get my money's worth, right? But seriously, I love to fly fish, and I've really been getting into tenkara fishing lately. So tenkara is a Japanese style of fly fishing that's almost between fly rod and an old-fashioned cane pole. And I mean, I grew up fishing with a cane pole, so these two things, the sort of the art of fly fishing and the simplicity of a cane pole, just come together perfectly in tenkara, and it's really fun. It's really nice because the tenkara rod is actually telescopic. It collapses down. You can put it in your backpack, which means you can hike around anywhere you see a little fishy water. You can get out there and toss a fly out and see if there's anything in there, anything that looks a little trouty. It's great to, if you're traveling around and you see a stream, so long as you are legally able to fish there, you can just jump right out and go for it. So that kind of brings me to the next point is this last week, I started my Substack newsletter, and response has been really good. People are really enjoying the newsletter. And like I said, in that newsletter, I'm going to be giving exclusive herb content. We talk about herbal medicine. I will also share some recipes, whether it's wild foraged foods, wild edibles, vegetables, flowers, all kinds of stuff that are good and tasty to eat, or trout or anything else. Because I love to cook, I love to eat. I'm gonna be sharing garden tips. You're gonna get to see my garden as it progresses through the season, and also, you can contact me, Judson at judsoncarroll.com or Southern Appalachian Herbs at gmail.com with any question. So if you have a question about an herb, it's a really good way just to connect and to with my listeners and my readers, all my friends out there, and stay connected and interact. And it's a free newsletter. You can forward it on, share it with your friends. So that's what my Substack. My Substack is judsoncarroll.com. You type in that URL and it redirects to my Judson Carroll Master Herbalist Substack page. Now, speaking of that, um, well, first of all, the reception of the new book has been fantastic. In the last episode of this podcast, I announced my new book, Growing Your Survival Herb Garden for Preppers, Homesteaders, and Everyone Else. And the response has been really good. I put this book together in a very simple format. I'm basically saying for this common condition that you can treat at home, here are 5 or 6 herbs. Simple herbs, easy to grow, easy to use. I think absolutely essential to have on hand. And I go through the chapters like that. I give all the gardening instructions. If you have a black thumb, if you don't certainly don't have a green thumb, you can't even keep the house plant alive, right? You can follow the simple instructions in my book, and they're applicable to any size property. So if you have to grow, if all you have is a balcony and an apartment, you can grow these herbs in containers on your balcony. If it's a condo courtyard, anything from there up to a backyard garden to a full-scale farm. You've got the instructions in my book on how to grow, dozens and dozens of herbs to treat any of your common conditions. These are for, home remedies, kitchen medicine. This is for colds and coughs and flus and cuts and burns and scrapes and sore throats and irritated eyes and earaches and bacterial infections and just various things that you're going to encounter in your daily life. And it's so very important to have these herbs on hand. Depending on what news source you consume, you may have no idea what's going on in China right now. You may be very well informed what's going on in China right now. They say it's an outbreak of another COVID variant. Other people say it may be something else. There was known to be in that region of China a very bad hemorrhagic fever that may or may not have anything to do with COVID. Who knows? First of all, they shut down Shanghai. I mean, this is one of the largest cities in the entire world. I think right now they have, I think 80 million people are completely locked down in China, and that's not like our lockdowns here in the United States. They're literally sealed in their apartment buildings. They cannot go out to get food. They cannot go out to get medicine. People are committing suicide, jumping off of high balconies because they're literally starving to death as government troops and robots, actually, they're using these robotic dogs with loudspeakers telling people to stay in their homes, stay inside, don't come out. They're starving to death. And if that isn't a reason, a really good illustration of why you need to be growing your own food and your own medicine, I can't think of a better one. Yeah, you could say, well, that'll never happen in the United States. Hey, you don't know that. I mean, a lot of things have been happening in the United States. A lot more has been happening in Canada that no one ever thought was going to happen. I mean, people's bank accounts being frozen just because they have what the government deems to be the wrong political beliefs. Get my book, Growing Your Survival Herb Garden for Preppers, Homesteaders, and Everyone Else. And I want to emphasize it really is for everyone else because even if you live in a homeowners association or property owners association where they tell you you can't grow anything but ornamental landscaping, I tell you how to grow your herb garden and your vegetables in an ornamental way so it really just looks like a flower garden. So it really just looks like ornamental landscaping intermixing many of these herbs that have beautiful flowers in a way that has a nice texture, a lot of contrast between height and the texture of the leaves, and a lot of visual appeal in the way that you shape the beds and everything to make them look more ornamental. It's a really good book, and it is volume 2 essentially of my best-selling book to date, which is Herbal Medicine for Preppers, Homesteaders, and Permaculture People. With those two books, you will know how to grow the herbs you need for your common home medical needs. So you don't have to go out. These gardening techniques I talk about in there are excellent for growing vegetables as well. Vegetables and fruit, and this is really. People say to me these books are they're not just books on herbal medicine; they're actually a way of life. And I think that's first time someone said that to me, I was like, wow, I had not thought about it that way. But really, yeah, it is. It's a way of life of resilience, self-sufficiency to a point, personal responsibility, taking care of yourself and your family. It's not a freak out, apocalyptic, the end is coming and everybody has to hunker down in their bunkers kind of thing. I don't believe in that. I just had this discussion the other day. We've been in the end times since the resurrection, speaking of Easter. Everyone is saying things are so bad in the world right now. This is the book of the Revelations. This is the end times. Well, we've been in the end times for 2,000 years now. The Bible actually says to God, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. Yeah, it seems like a long time to us, but you realize for God, it's only been like 2 days. So when I say we're in the end times, yes, the end will eventually get here, but Jesus Christ said no one knows the date or time. That was in God in human form. Humanity does not have the capacity to know that, even God in human form. He said, even the Son of Man himself, Jesus, did not have knowledge of the date or time of the end times. So when people start freaking out, I just want to remind them if you think you know the day of the end of the world, the apocalypse, either you're wrong or God's wrong. And I always put my money on God. I mean, it's really that simple. So that should give people some hope. But on the other hand, it also says, yeah, we're in this for the long haul. So you can't just expect trumpets to blast and everybody be okay all of a sudden. No, those who endure to the end will be saved. We have to keep the faith and keep working and keep growing our food and taking care of our families and living the lives we should live, not thinking the end is near any minute. Okay, and it might be. It may well be. It's just we don't know. So people, on the one hand, get all freaked out and they think the end is near and I have to prepare and all that. And then other people are like, well, I'm glad the end's near. Things are so bad. I'm just looking for a way out. Well, people have thought that for the last 2,000 years. If you read the early church fathers, they thought the end was imminent. They literally thought within their lifetimes the world was going to come to an end. And this was only, 70, 100 years after Jesus was crucified and rose in 1900. Many people in the world thought the date of 1900 signaled the end of the world, and people went out and gave away all their possessions and got together in little religious communities. A lot of Protestant groups did this, firmly believing that January 1, 1900. That was the day of the I guess the rapture or the Lord coming back. The trumpets were going to sound and something major was going to happen. And by January 2nd, nothing had happened. And these people were flat broke, quit their jobs. So my message is always more one of just be prepared for the long haul. I mean, come on, be prepared for the long haul. And that kind of brings me to a great interview that I was privileged to do this last week. I try not to talk a lot of politics in the show. I like to try to keep it about herbs and make sure everybody is welcome. I'm very open about who I am, though. I'm politically conservative. I'm a traditional Roman Catholic. That doesn't mean I go to the Latin Mass, by the way. That's a different type of traditional Catholic. There is no church anywhere near me that offers a Tridentine or Latin Mass. So I go to the regular Mass, but I am very orthodox in my beliefs. And I don't hide that at all. And I make sure everyone's welcome. I mean, I have listeners of various religions here, and I'm incredibly ecumenical. Where I live, I'm very much a minority as a Catholic. I mean, most people around me are, Church of God, Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh Day Adventists, Southern Baptists, and they're glad to tell me I'm going to hell because I'm Catholic, and they think they're doing me a favor when they do. But we get along really well. I mean, these same people are my neighbors, and when there's an ice storm that happens, we all help each other out. We see each other and we say, "How are you doing? How's your family?" There's no animosity at all. Even if we have contentious discussions, we have a level of respect for each other, and that's the way I always have tried to live my life. I mean, I have very good Jewish friends, very good Muslim friends, very good atheist and agnostic friends, and as long as we respect each other, we can converse. Seeing the humanity in another person is very important. I don't really tolerate any form of bigotry very well. I'll just put it that way. It's just not who I am. So while I do try to avoid political discussions as much as possible, I had the opportunity to go on a political talk show last week. It's Underground USA with Frank Salvato. Frank is one of the best conservative political talk show hosts in the country. He's also a super nice guy, and he's helped me out with advice on my podcast and doing the Substack in so many ways. His girlfriend CJ is an herbalist. These are really good, just down to earth people, very helpful and friendly, and not, some talk show hosts are a little loud for my taste. Frank is just a very calm, laid back, well reasoned guy, and he's, very conservative. And he wanted to talk with me about the sort of the roots of anti-Catholicism. I faced some anti-Catholic bigotry on a forum, and I left that forum because of that. We talked for a good 70 minutes about history, about really the forces behind a lot of the anti-Catholicism, anti-Semitism, and anti-Christian and anti-religion in general mindset, that the people and the philosophies that really try to marginalize and other and divide people based on religion. And it was wide ranging. We did not hold back on any topics. They're very politically incorrect. So if that's something that might interest you, be sure to check out Underground USA with Frank Salvato. And it was the episode he put out on Friday. Now, speaking of politics and seeing people as individuals and humans and having that respect for each other, often this time that respect entails respect to disagree. You know, you're not really showing someone respect if you just either don't listen to their opinions or you ignore an issue and don't discuss it intelligently and openly and respectfully. There's a guy out there that I know probably half my audience or more probably hates. I mean, just put it bluntly. Um, Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, he was an advisor to President Trump. He's very outspoken, real firebrand, conservative Catholic. He did two non-political shows for Easter that were phenomenal. And this is an opportunity, I think, if you, especially if you're, a person on the left and you absolutely, you grit your teeth at the name Steve Bannon, right? Watch these two shows because he did not get into politics. These were very in-depth analysis and conversation about serious religious topics in Christianity that never are discussed. I mean, these never come up. And he had these great guests. The first one was the evening show. He does two shows a day on Friday, on Good Friday. And he interviewed a Catholic author. They talked a lot of church history. And this was very interesting and a lot of understanding the role of suffering in human life, in religion and theology, and it was really good. It was really good. But then Holy Saturday, Saturday morning show, he had two guests on there. One was Jack Posobiec. I cannot remember the name of the other one. They really talked serious religious topics, on Holy Saturday in all of Christian history, except for a few different times and a few different groups of people. It's been taught that Jesus went into hell in his spirit and preached to the those who came before, the Hebrew fathers, the Abraham and Moses and all the people that were there because they couldn't go to heaven yet because Jesus opened the gates of heaven. They were not in hell with the devil. They were in another area, and Jesus went and preached to the souls in what was known at the time as limbo, and probably purgatory. I know these are very controversial subjects to a lot of Protestants, but it is in the Bible. Hell is defined as a place where there is no God. So there is obviously by necessity a different place where all those people that were, thousands of years before Christ were, where they were not being punished, but where they had to wait before he opened the gates of heaven. It is a phenomenal, fascinating topic. And I highly recommend those shows. Like I said, absolutely non-political and a really great opportunity, especially if you're not a very, I'll say certainly if you're not a very traditional Catholic, or if you're not, if you're Protestant, you're interested in what Catholics believe, and it's good. We like to have communication. Anything that divides the body of Christ is not good. Christian unity, working together, is what is all about, being the family of God and the body of Christ. So understanding each other's perspectives is very good. But also, if you're very, I would say, marginally or not religious, or not very studied in Christian history and the development of doctrine and the way the church grew and progressed. I mean, most people don't even really realize that for the first few hundred years of the church, anyone who declared themselves Christian was going to be fed to lions in the Roman Colosseum. I mean, most of the followers of Christ in the first few generations were martyred. They were killed. And it's not the happy prosperity doctrine church that we see on television. It's a very important history, because when you realize these people died for their faith and they meant it, they've lived it. I mean, these should be our heroes. And as you know, I'm very big on celebrating our heroes, not denigrating those who came before us, not overlooking their flaws, but championing their virtues, because that inspires us. That's what makes things good, when we live up to those ideals. So now let's get into some herbs. And I wanted to talk today about one of the fascinating bitter herbs. And this is one that has a history that's probably going to surprise you. Most folks have in their house, or have seen in someone else's house, an aloe plant. It's a little succulent. It's in the same family as cactus and such, usually sitting in a windowsill. People call it the burn plant, because when you burn yourself in the kitchen, you snap off a bit of it and put the gel on the inside on the burn. It soothes it. Or perhaps you've used aloe as a laxative or as part of a dietary program. A lot of people, that was very popular a few years ago. Aloe is a really anciently used herb. This is a desert plant. It likes heat. It doesn't, well, it likes moderate temperatures to hot. We'll go with that. It does not like cold. It cannot stand a frost or a freeze. It does not like overwatering. And yet, even 500 years ago, and before then, aloe had spread from the deserts of the Middle East, where it originates, throughout Europe. If you read the old herbals in Poland, it's a very cold place, in Poland, in Russia, in Ukraine. By the way, that was the center, the heart of the Ashkenazi Jewish herbalism, was in Ukraine and Poland, and in parts of Russia, but mainly right there in Ukraine. In England, in environments where, in Germany, certainly it was very widely used in Germany. Environments where aloe absolutely does not grow naturally. Even 500 years ago, 700 years ago, people had aloe as potted plants and were using it. It was considered one of the most essential herbs. It doesn't show up a lot in Greek herbal medicine. It actually came from the Arabs. And it's interesting, aloe vera, the name comes from an Arabic word meaning bitter, shiny substance. Now, how unique is it that a language would actually come up with something called bitter, shiny substance? I mean, how often do you encounter a bitter, shiny substance? I just find that really interesting, that it was such an important herb that it actually had its own language associated with it. At that time, aloe was used very differently than what we think of today. This is actually how aloe is still used in the Swedish bitters. They would take aloe and they would split the leaves open and scrape out the pulp and then dry it into a powder. And that powder was usually taken internally. They were maybe using, aloe fresh for sunburns and, such as that. But it's got antiseptic properties. It's got anti-inflammatory properties. Absolutely essential for dietary health at that time as a digestive bitter and as a means for keeping people regular. So aloe is really, when we think about the spice and herb trade, aloe is one of the plants that really spread farther and was more widely used by people throughout Europe than really most of the more prominent herbs we would think of today. Aloe is just absolutely considered essential. And so let me get into a little bit of the history. Well, apparently in Egypt, aloe was actually a religious symbol. It continued to have that religious association, well into the time of the rise of Islam. And Cairo, it seems that Cairo was really where the Jewish people got exposed to aloe, and it's really through the Jews as they moved to Rome, and then from Rome up toward Central Europe, going up toward Germany, Poland, Ukraine, and all that, that they spread aloe. So we can really thank the Jews for giving us aloe. Essentially, it originates with the Arabs and was spread to the world through the Jews. In ancient Egypt, it was known as the plant of immortality, mentioned by King Solomon in the Psalms, and it was one of the herbs that was used to anoint Christ's body. So this is a very appropriate herb for Easter. I think we could definitely agree with that. Dioscorides was the first Westerner to write about the benefits of aloe. Aloe was one of the herbs that was said to be used for Cleopatra in her beauty regimen. Alexander the Great even fought a battle over an island to secure a source of aloe. That's how important it was. It was so important that when Columbus explored, the Dominican Republic, essentially, he brought aloe to grow. If they could grow aloe in the New World, that would have been a major source of profit for Portugal and Spain and all those that came later. So aloe is actually bitter, and before you just start eating your houseplants, okay, check them out and make sure this is the aloe vera that is the one we use internally. And there's several resources online, Plants for Future. You can use various plant databases. There's succulent databases that the USDA does, so you can look through there and you can identify your plants. There are far too many of them for me to really get into that topic right now. But by 600 BC, the Arab traders were spreading the aloe plant throughout the Middle East. And then, as I said, it made it to Rome, and from Rome, it just spread throughout all of Europe. I think probably the biggest mistake people make growing aloe, one, it likes a sandier soil. If you want to buy a succulent potting mix, you can, but it needs a well-draining soil. Aloe really does not like wet feet. If you've ever had an aloe plant and it just kind of flops around, in the pot, it doesn't really seem to have strong roots that hold it upright. It's been overwatered and it's not going to be a healthy plant. Aloe is in the cactus family. It needs to have periods of dryness. So keep that in mind because I probably 9 times out of 10, I see overwatered aloe plants. So Dioscorides mainly wrote of aloe for stomach issues, to loosen the bowels, as he put it, as a purging medicine, but also mentioned that sprinkled on dry, this again was the dry powder, it would help heal wounds. By 1100 AD, St. Hildegard von Bingen was recommending aloe as a topical poultice daily for stomach fevers and to strengthen and remove issues from the head. Um, well, she was basically talking fevers and congestion. Similarly, she recommended the herb as a chest plaster for cough. Internally, she recommended infusions with wine and horehound and licorice. So it was a very commonly used herb. This would be Germany in 1100. So it had really spread, far by that time. Continued to be used in German folk medicine and monastic medicine. Father Nape, writing in the 1800s, he said the leaves boiled in water and a cupful of the decoction taken purges the stomach and bowels. The plant is also a remedy for liver complaints and jaundice if it's pulverized, and a pinch of it taken twice a day. There again, we're seeing it as a bitter herb, good for the liver, but also good for digestive complaints. He said a leaf boiled with a tablespoon of honey and half a pint of water and taken in small quantities will take away interior heat and will prove especially serviceable in cases where there are blisters on the palate or whooping cough. His protege, Brother Aloysius, said aloe was a good stomach tonic, a strengthening purgative to bring on menstruation, as an eye wash, good for sores, scars, and fresh wounds. Igor, I guess it's Igor, right? It's not going to be Igor from Young Frankenstein. One of my favorite movies, by the way. Absolutely love that film. Igor Vilovich Zevin wrote a great Russian herbal, and he tells us that aloe really only made it to Russia in the 1930s, and then it was commonly grown in households used for cuts, scrapes, burns, cold sores, sunburns, and other skin irritations. Now, going far back to the 1500s, in England, Gerard wrote about aloe. He gave a little history on it, and hey, this is where it's first mentioned as being compatible, a good substitute for actually what's called house leek. Now, house leek really was the much more commonly used herb in official herbalism. St. Hildegard writes a lot on house leek. This was one of the herbs the Benedictines used. This would have been an herb that was known to ancient Rome and Greece. A little cactusy-like plant that doesn't have spines. It's called hens and chicks because you'll have one central plant in the middle, and it puts off little baby plants all around it. So, in a fanciful way of looking at it, it looks like a mother hen with her chicks around it. This is known as sempervivum, uh, sempervivum in Latin, which actually means live forever, an herb with very ancient use in Greek and Latin herbal medicine. And the reason it would have been far more popular and more used than aloe is because it's native to much colder climates. Basically, even in cold mountain areas where you had rocky soil, you could probably find at one point sempervivum. The thing is, it's been so over harvested as an ornamental that now we really shouldn't harvest it from the wild. If we do find some growing in the wild, you can go to really any plant store and probably buy one of these for, maybe $5. And like the name implies, it will live forever if you take good care of it. And you can snap off the leaves and use them just like aloe. In Dioscorides and St. Hildegard, the internal use seems very similar as well. But always before you take something internally, seriously check it out. Let me just go ahead and pull up specific herbal use. Semper. This is our 2-minute Latin lesson, isn't it? Semper as in semper fi, always faithful, semper fidelis. Vivum meaning life. So semper, always, vivum, life, live forever. It's in the stonecrop family, whether you call it sempervivum, whether you call it hens and chicks, or whether you call it house leek. And this specific member of this house leek family that's used in herbal medicine is Sempervivum tectorum. There is also a Sempervivum arachidonium and a Sempervivum caucasicum. That would be from the Caucasus. It doesn't mean it's white or anything. This is Caucasian, right? It's actually from the Caucasus. All right, so Sempervivum tectorum, this is according to Plants for a Future, says house leek leaves and their juice are used for their cooling and astringent effect, being applied externally to soothe many skin conditions. As with many other remedies, they are both astringent and soothing. House leek simultaneously tightens and softens the skin. The fresh leaves are astringent, diuretic, refrigerant, and vulnerary. They are used as a poultice in much the same way as aloe vera in the treatment of a wide range of skin diseases, burns, scalds, bites, and stings, and have been used to get rid of warts and corns. The plant is sometimes used internally in the treatment of shingles, skin complaints, and hemorrhoids, although some care is required, since in excess the plant is an emetic and purgative. The leaves are harvested as required and used fresh. So it is essentially interchangeable with aloe vera. The actions are almost identical. I think the house leek may be a little better for getting rid of warts and corns. So after Gerard tells us that aloe is much like house leek, he then says it purges the belly, it bringeth forth the cholera, which basically mucus from the stomach is what he's talking about. and putrefaction. That's another word he used for, but he said good for all manner of complaints of the stomach. As a purgative, he explains it's good for wounds and deep sores, good for taking away bruising. He recommended aloe for ulcers. He said, the same taken inwardly causeth the hemorrhoids to bleed, and being put thereon, it causeth them to cease bleeding. So that's very interesting. If that's a condition you suffer from, you might find that helpful advice to use externally as opposed to internally. Culpeper, 100 years later or so, said it opens the belly, purges cold, phlegmatic, and chloric humors, which overburden and hurt the stomach. So again, they were using it mostly internally, and that would have been in the dried form that I explained. But then he says that the fresh plant's good for scabs, running sores, burns, all kinds of such as that. Grieve, writing in the 1930s. She actually says that in the Anglo-Saxon leech books, which are the oldest herbals we have from the British tradition, they actually referenced use of aloe as being recommended to Alfred the Great by the Patriarch of Jerusalem. So by the 10th century, this plant, aloe, was so important it had already spread to England, was one of the major imports of the East Indian Company. So, really important in trade and fascinating history. And it's still just one of our best herbs, and I don't think we necessarily look at it in the right way. I mean, going back to Plants for a Future, they said of aloe, aloe vera is a fairly well-known herbal preparation with a long history. It is widely used in modern herbal practice and is often available in proprietary herbal preparations. It has two distinct types of medicinal use. The clear gel contained within the leaf makes an excellent treatment for wounds, burns, and other skin disorders, placing a protective coat over the affected area, speeding up the rate of healing and reducing the risk of infection. This action is in part due to the presence of aloe B, which stimulates the immune system. To obtain this gel, the leaves can be cut in half along their length and the inner pulp rubbed over the affected area. This has an immediate soothing effect on all sorts of burns and other skin problems. The second use comes from the yellow sap at the base of the leaf. The leaves are cut transversely at the base, and the liquid that exudes from this cut is dried. It is called bitter aloe and contains anthraquinones, which are a useful digestive stimulant and strong laxative. The plant is a minagogue, emollient, laxative, purgative, stimulant, stomatic, tonic, vermifuge, and vulnerary. Now, what does all that mean? A minagogue means it brings on menses. Emollient means it softens the skin. Laxative, you know what that is. Purgative, the same. Basically cleans you out, we'll put it that way. It's a stimulant. Stomatic, tonic means it's tonifying to the internal organs or to the skin where you apply it. Vermifuge means it helps rid you of parasites. Vulnerary means it helps heal wounds. So that's what all those fancy words mean. It's just good for your digestive system and good for your skin, cuts, wounds, burns, anything like that. The extracts of the plant have an antibacterial activity. Apart from its external use on the skin, aloe vera, usually the bitter aloe, is taken internally in the treatment of chronic constipation, poor appetite, digestive problems. It should not be given to pregnant women or people with hemorrhoids or irritable bowel syndrome, and we just discussed why. Here's a modern source saying the exact same thing Gerard said in the 1500s. So really interesting, the documented use of this plant. The plant is strongly purgative, so great care should be taken over the dosages. This plant also has a folk history in the treatment of cases of cancer, so that's worth looking into. If you'd like to know a little bit more about that. Known hazards of aloe vera, none known. So generally speaking, a very safe, very useful plant, and one that if you're just looking at it as a burn plant, wow, are you missing out on the virtues of this herb. So that's our herb lesson for the week, and that's gotten you all caught up on the goings on with the newsletter and the new book. Remember, you can find my books on Amazon. All my books are on Amazon, and 6 of them so far. Also, if you just want the PDF, you want the ebook, come to my blog, southernappalachianherbs.blogspot.com, or my Substack, which again is just judsoncarroll.com, and you can order it directly from me. But if you want a print copy or you get the Kindle version or something like that, an e-reader version or anything that's specific to your device, you will need to go through Amazon or however you get your ebooks. And I always appreciate it. In all honesty, I say a prayer for every single person who buys my books. You're helping me to live the career of my choice and to spend my time doing the things I'm really passionate about. So I value each one of you probably more than you can ever imagine. So y'all have a wonderful week. Talk with you next time. I hope if you are Christian and you celebrate Easter, I hope you're absolutely enjoying not just the beauty of nature, but hopefully you get to spend some time with family and friends and people that matter to you, and go to the church of your choice and just enjoy this wonderfully rich religious tradition that is actually the most holy time of the Christian calendar. If you're Jewish, I wish you an absolutely blessed Passover. If you're Muslim, uh, Ramadan, my wishes are with you to have just all the blessings in your life as well. And, if you're none of the above, just get out and enjoy nature. So, y'all have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. And don't forget to sign up for that Substack newsletter because I'm going to be putting out some really good exclusive content there. Now that I've gotten the feedback and I know how much people enjoy it, I'm going to put a little bit of time and effort into that. So have a great week, and I'll see you next.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.